Hey everybody, it's your favorite gentleman, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And this is round 2 of the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I'm on a roll today, y'all, recovering from COVID-19. And we are pushing through and we are moving forward with my second guest of the evening. I'm excited about this man because he's going to be talking about something that is changing our PR industry. And it's some technology that I hope and I know that you're going to be excited about. I'm very excited about it, and I can't wait to bring this man on the stage. He is a wealth of knowledge, and like I said, changing the way you and I do business in regards to PR. So, I'm not going to hold this man back any further. Let's get started. Here we go. Welcome to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. If you are tuning in, I am bringing an incredible man to the stage, Mr. Jered, and he is the CEO and founder. He started his career in digital marketing after landing an internship and full-time job for one class he took as a CSULB alum. From there, he went to manage and co-sell his company called Byte in San Diego. His first successful exit as an entrepreneur. And that's something that you don't hear too often is when you start a business, everybody wants to start a business, but he actually sold, and his expertise in that is going to be profound. It was at Byte that he worked closely with his new co-founder at OnePitch, Mr. Beck Bamberger, and where they established a budding relationship to build and sell companies. And so help me welcome to the stage this incredible CEO, Jered Martin. Please help me welcome him to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Sir, welcome to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. We are happy to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Marcus. It's a pleasure to be here and very much looking forward to following up that great intro with some more juicy information for all the listeners today.
Absolutely. So, speaking of juicy information, I want to dive right in. What sparked OnePitch? It had to be more than just meeting your co-founder, right? He sounds like an incredible man, but what's triggered the idea for OnePitch?
So OnePitch was really the birth child of some brainstorming that my co-founder Beck and I had, and she is currently a CEO and founder of BAM Communications, and they're a public relations agency also based here in San Diego. And it was through the experience of her as well as a lot of her colleagues over the past decade using a lot of different technology tools, both PR and non-PR related, and really kind of identifying the need for something that was more effective, that reduced the amount of time that it took, not just to use the tools, but the entire media relations process. And so her and I set out on this journey to really start to understand more about the industry, understand more about the market of the tools that were available, and really create something that was innovative. And again, that kind of addressed a lot of those pain points that I mentioned before, as well as a plethora of others that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more today.
Absolutely. Thank you for breaking that down. So delicately. Tell us, that's a unique name. I would have never thought of a name like that. How did you come up with the name OnePitch? And what does OnePitch do? What does your company do?
So the name, it really, at the birth of OnePitch, we had this crazy idea, this crazy dream that all you needed was one pitch to send to a journalist, to get them to respond, to get them interested, and ultimately to work with them. And we're fortunate enough that we can say some folks on our service who have used it in the past have only had to submit one pitch in order to get those results that they're looking for. But for us, I mean, again, it was kind of this goal even of really where we wanted the company to go to within the next few years here. And so that name, combined along with this whole technology movement of the capital letters and the lowercase letters mixed together, is how OnePitch was created. And we very much changed the way that our service was 4 years ago to where it is today. And the way that it works now is it's pretty simply a matching tool. At the end of the day, what we do is we help businesses, the folks who represent those businesses or work on behalf of them, identify the right journalists, which technically are reporters, editors, and freelancers from national news publications, from trade publications, ultimately from reputable news sources, get connected with those businesses and eventually work together to produce a story.
That makes sense. So is that a problem? Are you seeing that as a problem in the industry, that people are having a hard time connecting and getting the word out about whatever it is they're trying to get publicized? Is that a common problem?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially when you look at just the numbers in the space, journalists are currently outnumbered about 6 to 1. And that statistic was released probably within the past 2 years. And I would argue it's probably larger than 6 to 1 now. So you have a very large group on the PR, marketing, and comm side who's trying to reach a very, very small group of journalists at these various publications. And typically pitching, within the past 10 years has been done via email. So when you take into consideration those numbers, and then you look at, again, what a journalist might be receiving in their inbox, for example, journalists are severely inundated with all sorts of pitches. A lot of them are not even relevant to what they write about. A lot of them are sales pitches, or they're, somebody who's basically meeting the needs of their client by saying, hey, look, I have to pitch you this product, but I know that there's no news to share with you. And there's a ton of examples with this. And I think for us and our company, we're very lucky because we have a podcast called Coffee with the Journalist. We interview journalists one-on-one every week, and we get them to basically share these intimate details with us about their pitching preferences, about what their inbox looks like. And a lot of them will tell us, I get hundreds of emails a day, and maybe 1 to 2% at most are actually relevant and interesting to me and worth pursuing. Some of them do respond to these emails, and there are a lot of them who literally just click the select all button and delete them and never see the light of day.
So thank you for breaking that down. So what makes sets OnePitch apart, right? Is it an email system that takes my business, takes my industry, and does it just generate another email to that journalist? What makes it stand out to that journalist that sets it apart from others?
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the media relations process, really, we help folks, again, really identify the right journalists to pitch. And the technology that we use looks at information about a company. There are certain steps that a user would need to take. For example, uploading an existing pitch, providing a description of the company or of their client, or for example, maybe they have a press release they've already drafted and they want to distribute that on the wire. They can upload that press release onto our service. And what we'll do is we'll scan through all of that information and we compare it to our database of journalists. And right now there's a couple of thousand journalists within our database, and we track all of the articles that they publish. And we take the pitch and we compare it to all of those articles, and we identify out of this large database who are the best match, and determining that, again, based on those articles. So really it's what we call a text to text matching tool. But we're taking it well beyond what a lot of the other services in our industry do in terms of providing matches for folks. A lot of times there is a very, very large, robust database of 1 million to even almost 1 billion contacts. So it's a ton of information to sift through. And they basically ask you to provide a search term, and they might give you some additional filters. But then it's on the user to go through pages on pages of information and essentially identify a match that maybe, has just incorporated a couple of words into their articles or into the biography about themselves. We're really taking it a step further. We're looking at the story. We're pulling out the context of that story. We're pulling out the topics of that story, any sort of statistics that we can provide, individuals, companies that they're discussing, and using all of those various data points and comparing them with what journalists actually write about, and then really driving in a match for this end user. And one of the other things that really differentiates us is we do actually limit the amount of results that we share with folks. And we've gotten some feedback that says, hey, you know, I don't have enough matches. I used X competitor and I get 100 or I get 200. And we come back to them and we tell them, hey, you know, there's a reason why we actually limit the amount of results that you see. And that's because there's this common rule. Michael Smart, who's a very well-known PR influencer, calls it the 80-20 rule. And basically what he says is focus 80% of your time on the top 20% of your list. And I can go on and blabber on more statistics, but again, from an industry perspective and from a journalist preferences perspective, we know that personalization is very, very important when it comes to pitching. And when you try to personalize 100 or more emails, that would take you, you know, you guys can probably do the math. It'll take you very long. And so limiting the size of that list, really honing in on those top matches or those top contacts and making those message highly personal ultimately translate to a higher success rate for that particular person or for that professional.
Mr. Jered Martin, y'all. Mr. Jered, this has to cost a fortune. What's the cost of entry? First, let me ask this. What types of businesses are good customers for OnePitch? Who's your ideal customer or business for OnePitch?
OnePitch caters to a lot of different professions, if you will. It is a public relations tool, more specifically media relations, but we're seeing that folks within the marketing space, within the external communication space, are also leveraging these types of tools within their organization. So really, you know, from a business perspective, PR, marketing, and communications, we also cater very closely to startups who don't have a budget necessarily to hire a PR agency to do PR on their behalf. We're also starting to see a lot of venture capital firms come in and use our service, mostly the comms folks from there who are doing the marketing and the PR for all of their portfolio companies. The other kind of, you know, really rich segment that we're starting to see spring up, and I think part of this is related to the pandemic, is a lot of freelancers, folks who are out on their own now, who are, you know, running their own business, realizing that they have a ton of value and that they have these expertise that they can lend to companies. And so we're starting to see, again, a little bit different of a mix. Originally, we saw a lot of agencies sign up. And I think the pandemic really kind of shifted that. And so, you know, it's a full gamut, but really anybody who wants to get in touch with journalists, anybody who's looking for any sort of press mentions, or, you know, if you're in marketing, you know, SEO, if you're looking for backlinks, this is a really great service for you to consider using. And I can't answer the first part of your question, or maybe the second part, Marcus, which was how much does it cost? And we're a freemium service, believe it or not. We have been free for the past year since we've released our newest service model. We've been free, you know, all the way up until we launched the service. The goal has always been not necessarily to make money. I mean, of course, that is the end goal for any business at the end of the day. But for us, we've really tried to refine the service itself and refine the product, make it as good as it can be, make it very, very valuable and effective for our end users. And ultimately, you know, we are talking about or discussing shifting to a subscription model. But there are no numbers that we've solidified yet. There is no timeline for that yet. And for anybody who's curious and might be listening, we are certainly in the process, and I will say in the process because it's not solidified yet, but we are looking at commercial partnerships in terms of generating revenue. And we're you know, in some conversations now with some other companies who are looking to potentially leverage or integrate our tool into theirs. And so for us, I mean, again, we have a huge passion for this space. A lot of us have done PR ourselves, and we know how much a lot of these other tools can cost. Some of them are thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars a month. And, you know, again, when that's the case, you're really taking away a lot of people who need access to this sort of thing. So I think for us, you know, that's another benefit to OnePitch, is we're really trying to make it accessible to a larger population, especially those who don't have a huge budget to spend on tools, let alone, you know, an agency to do this stuff for them.
Very true. Very true. I think you said the magic word for the Gentleman Style Podcast mascot. He likes the word free. So you said the key word that triggered him. We are going to go to a short, quick commercial break, y'all. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We got to pay some bills from our show sponsors. We'll be right back.
If you're looking for a reliable, professional trucking and logistics service, you've come to the right place. Musa Trucking is a veteran-owned and operated premier transportation provider that can help with all of your trucking and logistics needs. Musa is revolutionizing the trucking industry through strategic partnerships, the development of core personnel, and the use of cutting-edge technology. Our inventory system ensures that cargo ends up divided into the right trucks and reaching the correct destination. Our drivers are dedicated to transporting goods efficiently and safely. Contact us today to get started by visiting the website on the screen or by calling 757-756-5246.
Welcome back to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. If you all missed it, we have the incredible Mr. Jered Martin of OnePitch, and he is breaking down and spilling the tea on this new technology that is right now. They haven't settled on a price, on a number. You all want to take advantage of this right now before he changes his mind. But his service, OnePitch, his company, OnePitch, is changing the way businesses connect with journalists and not newspapers and journalists and the media to get word on your business and how you spread your business and get the word out there. It's called OnePitch, and we have the man, the myth, the legend today that's teaching us and speaking on it right now, Mr. Jered. So right now the service is free, and OnePitch does kind of like the hard work. It gets it in front of the right journalist, not just any journalist, the right journalist according to your business structure. How is that? How does that work? Is that a artificial intelligence incorporated, or is there a manual team? Is there people on your team that go through and comb through each one of each business profile to find the right match?
There are a lot of moving parts, needless to say, Marcus. Some of them are certainly automated. Some of them are certainly fueled by machine learning. But there are also a couple of individuals, including myself, who work behind the scenes to ensure the efficiency, the accuracy of the service, especially when it comes time for those folks to actually reach out and try to connect with these journalists. And we very much pride ourselves not only on working on the service itself and working very closely with our folks on the PR side and the marketing and the comms side, but we also pride ourselves very much on working with journalists and preserving their privacy. And so really when it comes down to it, again, we have a list that we would generate for folks, basically tells them, here is X person from X outlet. This is their role. Here's the location. If we're able to publicly find an email address, we will include that. But not everybody has that information available, so we don't always provide that if we can't. And really the last thing is, again, to just make sure when folks are reaching out that it's a relevant person to reach out to. We do have oversight as well when we see folks are potentially misusing the platform. I personally will reach out and not to, of course, to say they've done something wrong or to point out something bad, but to just simply say, hey, look, it was actually designed to be used this way. And that's, I'm letting you know. So now you have the expectations set. And, the biggest thing, again, is with journalists, it's very, very easy to get on their bad side. It's very, very hard to get on their good side, let alone get a response for them. But it's very easy to get blocked, to go on the spam list. There are so many different things that when it comes down to the preferences of journalists that take a lot of time to figure out and really know. Everyone is so different from one another. Some folks like to be emailed. Other folks, they actually want to be called, or they want you to reach out to them on Signal. So that it's a huge, huge space of personal preferences. And really at the end of the day, again, we can boil down to just a couple of things. We know that 9 times out of 10, they still want to get an email. They want it to be very personal, and they want to make sure that people have read their work and know actually what they cover, instead of just saying, oh, hey, I read your bio and you write about AI. So here's this crazy, AI tool that you could use, when really, they're covering regulations or something like that. So there's a lot of homework that needs to be done on the side of the publicists, as we call them, to really understand the journalists and what their preferences are. And that's really, again, part of our service. What we've tried to do is really outline a lot of various data points that most folks are searching for on their own. And rather than having to go and do all of the research and document the notes and do all these things and create these media lists on a spreadsheet, we made it all very easy to do that in one place. And, at the end of the day, again, the whole idea is that you can really understand who this person is, the journalist, understand what they write about, follow them for a while if you need to, or if you think you have something that's very newsworthy, to go ahead and craft an email and send it to them. And I think that's really, your question. I want to stress that, especially with folks who use our service, is that we don't automatically send anything and everything. There is an onus on the user to actually go into the service to do a little bit of work, again, which is reduced by a very, very large percentage in relation to what it takes normally to do that organically. But to then say, okay, I'm going to reach out to so-and-so from the New York Times. And we make it very easy for them. We provide pitches they've submitted and press releases, so they can use those as templates if they'd like to. But we also allow them to really customize the information that they're going to send via email. And the next thing that I would say too is we make it very easy for them to track this stuff. We have some tracking in place so they can know when they contacted somebody. If they get a response, we'll document that. All of this stuff is also handled both on the platform as well as in the normal inbox of the email client. So there's a really easy transition from going from the service to kind of the normal way that people are used to doing the outreach and having all of those conversations. And there's a lot of services who don't really provide that ease of transition. You have to do it all on our platform. And at the end of the day, I mean, we would love it if people spent all day on there, but we know that's not reality. We know we're just one little piece of this giant puzzle, especially when you're looking at a PR campaign. So for us, again, we're really trying to make it very easy for this one segment of media relations, to make it as streamlined as possible, to reduce the work time that it takes, and to really, again, at the end of the day, just make it much more efficient than it has been for the past 2 years.
Makes sense. So I'm a very hands-off kind of guy. I'm a very hands-off type of CEO. I'm the person that I want to oversee it. I want to check the work, but I'm not necessarily have the time to dedicate to really writing down that PR campaign or that media campaign. Does OnePitch do any of that? Is there any portion of the platform at a for maybe a premium cost I could submit my idea or submit my business, and OnePitch basically puts together my media kit for me or my brag sheet for me? Anything like that?
At this time, we don't have anything like that. However, you're really looking at the tool, if you will, who can get feedback to folks, who can bounce ideas and brainstorm with. I've done this again for the past couple of years since we launched the service, and I always offer myself up. I always offer, even if it's 15 or 20 minutes, or if you just want to send me an email, to look over this stuff. Of course, I can't compile it for you. I'm not able to develop any sort of assets, but in terms of feedback, in terms of really understanding those journalist preferences, in terms of best practices for creating a pitch or trying to position yourself, if you will, that's where my expertise shines. And I'm really excited because part of that, actually, we're going to be releasing a case study really soon that we connected with an individual, gave him a little bit of feedback. And by we, our team basically just said, hey, you're looking for some feedback, you're for some help, here's some things that you can try to implement. And within 2 weeks, this guy who didn't have any prior experience or expertise is getting responses from journalists and ultimately getting stories placed for himself and his company. And, that's a success story, let alone, the fact that we're helping him do that. So, in terms of that full media kit stuff, unfortunately, again, it's not something that we do yet. We are actually going to be launching a new video series, though, which will actually give some folks a little bit more of an idea of some of the tools that may help them with this sort of thing. And the video series, we're calling it Founder to Founder, very similar to kind of what you're doing, where I'm going to be interviewing some founders and talking to them a little bit more about their tools and, who they're catered to and how people can best use them. So I think for us, the biggest thing is, although we don't have those services, we are fully aware that a lot of people have a toolkit and that they need access to those. And we're, very much inclined to share the ones that either we've used or that we firmly, believe will make a difference in those campaigns, like you mentioned.
That makes sense. And I'm glad you broke that down. I'm glad you separated the two for us, because that's important, and that's a need to know, so that people don't make the mistake. Is like, because there are those people, those business owners that are very hands off. And so
Hmm.
working with you and working with your team to put together the right package so that they can make a really good presentation when they upload all their documentation and their business information to OnePitch. So
Hmm.
thank you for taking the time to break that out and break that down for us. I really admire you for taking a leap of faith, right? And doing this, because you identified a problem, and and you realized there was no solution for the problem. There wasn't anyone out there doing this. And so can you tell my audience real quick having why making the connection to a journalist is so important to a business? I don't think people understand that good PR is crucial to a business, because it gets the work. Can you share the reasons why businesses need good PR and why this is important to consider and budget for?
Yeah, yeah. I wish my co-founder was here with me, considering she runs an agency and tells people this all the time, why it's so important. But I think for me and what I understand, public relations is really there's a lot more trust. There's a stronger foundation there between what somebody sees on a news website or in a newspaper, and in a news article, versus getting an advertisement on a website. Faith in advertising has really diminished. We all know what's happened with now Meta, which used to be Facebook. We're starting to hear about Google and the privacy concerns that people are having with how they are tracking user data. And so I think advertisements are really they're at a point where for a lot of the younger generation, they're not personal, and everyone thinks they're bullshit. But regardless, PR publicity is something that's truly earned. And that's kind of another name for media relations. They call it earned media. And what they mean by that is, that you have developed something cool, you've developed something useful that there's a need for. And there's a reason why this particular individual who is trusted and writes for a trusted organization or publication is telling, their audience about that. So, and I love to use that example of kind of paid advertising, or paid media versus earned media. And I think that kind of crystallizes a little bit better for folks to really understand. It's great if you're running ads, and I always think, if you have consumer products, right, that's a great way to run an advertisement. If you have a local business, that's a great way to run an advertisement. But when you're really trying to tell a story about something, when you're really trying to inform people, not just make sales happen, that's really, again, where PR comes into play. And the beautiful part about PR is that typically that does trickle down into sales, that trickles down into, converting potential customers into existing customers. It gets your loyal customers to talk about you, to share why they appreciate what you do. So there's so many different involvements within PR that grab from all these different departments in an organization. Whereas again, when you're running an advertisement, you don't want somebody to click on it because then they're going to charge you money, right? Or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I think PR, again, there's a lot of trust, and there's a very much stronger foundation there in terms of when people read something that's in a news article or on a website, versus seeing that advertisement pop up on the TV or on the corner of your webpage or something like that.
Absolutely. I want to keep every penny of my money in my pocket if I can. So I like that. I like that he
Yeah,
brought that up. That's
yeah.
absolutely important. I need that.
PR is free. Keyword: PR is free. You don't pay for, if you're paying for PR, that's not PR at that point. That's paid advertising. So that's the other real benefit that I forgot. And you reminded me of that, Marcus. So thank you.
Absolutely. That's pain. And he said the magic word again for our Gentleman Style Podcast host. And he's very excited. He loves that word free. And we like the word free here on the Gentleman Style Podcast show. Mr. Jered, what's a book that you recommend that really kind of set the tone for everything else that you've achieved today. What's a book that you would recommend every man or woman read?
I think this book, it might be, or it might come off as something more masculine. But the book is called Extreme Ownership. And it was written, I forget his last name, but his first name is Jocko. He has a podcast. He's one of these ex-Navy SEAL guys who just like gets up at 4 a.m., runs 10 miles, does like 1,000 push-ups, that type of person. But the book itself, Extreme Ownership, it really, it boils down to all of these learnings that he found through his time in the service, and as well as being a SEAL, it's training at the most elite level. And really, there's 10 different lessons that he shares. One of the quotes that I remember, or one of the lessons I should say, is there are no bad teams, just bad leaders. And that's something that I always think about whenever, I might get upset or frustrated at something's going on, internally. And it always reminds me, and it always humbles me to be like, you know what, this is not anybody else's fault but my own. And I think, again, if, it does have, a little bit more military style. So that's not something that you're interested in, totally understand. But I think the book itself has a lot of learnings. There's applications that he takes literally from the battlefield and brings them into real life, into like business environments and things like that. This is a book that my co-founder has her entire team read at her other company that we've all read at OnePitch. One that I always recommend to folks. And again, I think it's, when it really boils down to it, it's a little strict, if you will. But at the end of the day, there's so many good lessons and so many things to take away from it. And I think a lot of how we govern ourselves at our company, having this openness, the feedback loop and all of these sort of things, but then also realizing that we are owners of what we do. And that, we want to be proud of that. And we also want to do our best. I think that, hands down would be the one book that has really influenced me a lot over the past 4 years.
I love that. What is the best way for my audience to connect with you? How can we connect with you, get on board with what you're doing, and find and grow with OnePitch?
Yeah, so you can find us on social, on Twitter, Instagram. We're at OnePitch, SaaS, SaaS. We're also on LinkedIn. And I would say between those three platforms, those are the most popular social platforms that we operate on. We're sharing all sorts of company updates, quotes, journalist videos, that sort of thing. If you do want to connect with us via email as well, you can always shoot us a message to info@onepitch.co. I am the one who answers all of that. I apologize that it's an info email, but either way, you can expect a real person there. If you head to our website at onepitch.co, all of our information, of course, about our service, what we do, our case studies, our blog, all of our videos, the podcast, all that stuff is on there. We've got a great chat tool. It is not a chat bot either. It is a real person, myself, who answers the questions. So you can expect when you get into there, if you've got questions offhand that you want to ask, feel free to shoot them over to us. Otherwise, that's pretty much our footprint and where we are these days.
Awesome. He's a very hands-on founder and CEO, y'all. So get connected, get on board, and get on board and get your PR game up this year. As a business owner, as someone that is looking to grow and expand and get the word out about your product or service, right? OnePitch is the shop for you. So check them out. Mr. Jered, I want to say thank you, sir, for taking the time out of your busy day to be here and to give back in this way. This has been tremendous and very helpful. I thank you, sir, and I thank you for what you're doing. I want to say this to you publicly. Never give up. Never quit and never stop what you're doing, because we need you and we need what you're doing. So I appreciate you.
It's been a pleasure, Marcus. I really enjoyed this. Thank you very much for having me. And thank you for creating a platform like this for people like myself and others to be able to share what we're doing and really give a little bit of ourselves to the folks who are listening. So big ups on you, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure. And thank you for that. I want to say one more time, y'all, OnePitch. That's www.onepitch. That's one word, .co. Check them out and get on board. And I appreciate you all. I appreciate you all for tuning in. I appreciate you all for taking the time out of your busy day to be with us here today and gain some knowledge to take your business to the next level. And so, like I end every show, always, always, always take care of your friends, take care of your families, and always, always take care of business. This is Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show, your favorite host, and Mr. Jered Martin, CEO and co-founder of OnePitch. Love you guys. Bye.